All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back if you're already a viewer, and welcome for the first time if you're not. I have decided to go ahead and do a playlist of short videos to help answer some of the questions that I often get asked about metal detecting. I get a lot of questions. Hey, I just started out. Hey, I'm new to this. Hey, could you help us out? I think it'd be really helpful just to start a video series. So we're out here on the beach in a barren, open area on a beautiful day in Destin. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start out with your basic metal detecting stuff, okay? And I'll start out with my equipment. I'm sorry it's a little dirty. I went out metal detecting earlier today. Got some salt water on everything, but hopefully you'll still be able to see quite well. The detector I'm using is a MineLab Equinox 600, and I'm using the 15-inch, the aftermarket 15-inch coil by MineLab. And I've got this CKG carbon fiber stainless steel sand scoop. This is my everyday starter kit. This is kind of what I use every day. So what I'll do is I'll start off by setting up my detector, and then we will get into the basics of how to use your detector, okay? So we'll go ahead and push our start button here. I've got this thing wired up to my headphones, so I'm going to take those out so that you guys can hear the detector as it goes. Push my little button here. So just to start off with the breakdown of the Equinox 600, you've got 6 detection modes, okay? You've got Park 1, Park 2, Field 1, Field 2, Beach 1, and Beach 2. Now I'll go through each one of these settings for the detection modes in a later video. I'm just going to show you real quick what I set up to detect at the beach. I use Beach 2, and I really don't mess with any other settings. The only thing that I will change, which isn't even a change, is I'll use my noise cancellation, which can pick up a lot of frequencies that get into the detector and give you false signals when there's a lot of cell phones around, cell phone towers, a lot of electrical interference. You'll get a bunch of chatter. So you go over to your noise cancellation by pushing the cog here. It's the first one that comes up, and you just kind of hold your detector a few inches off the ground, nice and level, and you press this check mark and it'll go through, and it'll pick a channel, which I'm not really sure how all of it works, so I'm not going to pretend I do. It just picks a channel that it operates in that reduces a good bit of the noise. Okay, so we're going to push our detection button right here, our detect mode button, to get back. Okay, on this plus and minus button, I usually start out with a 22, and that's my gain or my sensitivity, depending on who you are and what you like. And on the beach, I put all metal mode, which is going to be this little horseshoe right here, okay? That turns it on to detect everything. Now, when you're starting out detecting, I would not worry about all of the fancy things that your detector can do to get rid of bottle caps or to get rid of rusty signals or rusty nails or whatever it is. You just want to go with the basic detect everything when you start out, just so that you can get an idea of what you're doing and you don't risk losing any targets that you wouldn't get if you had all of that fancy stuff on until you learn how to use it all properly. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk about after getting your detector set up, which of course everybody will be different, this is mine, which if you can hear that, that's a little bit of that chatter I was telling you about. You can see the numbers on the screen changing. That's that noise. And when that happens, you can turn your gain or sensitivity down a little bit, and Usually get rid of that. That's kind of the basic. You know, you get out somewhere, if there's no interference, you turn your gain up as high as you can without getting a bunch of chatter. And then if you get a bunch of chatter, you start turning it down till it goes away. Okay, so now that everything's set up and the detector's in its mode, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put my arm in the sling here, which is just a little Velcro sling. Almost every detector is gonna have one. I'm gonna grab the detector just like this, okay? And when it comes to using your metal detector, okay, how you're gonna do your sweeps, which is your motion, one of the most important things that I wanna get across is that your detector coil needs to remain parallel to the ground that you're searching at all times, okay? If you see people out here and they're walking up and down the beach and they're swinging their detector and it looks something like this, where they're making a kind of a smiley face, don't do that. The way these coils work is they will charge up. They send an electrical charge, okay, an electromagnetic charge down into the ground that hits a piece of metal, and then that metal gets charged and it sends the charge back up to the detector coil, and that coil will then read it. So if your detector coil isn't flat across the ground, what's going to happen is that you're only going to get a signal area that's maybe here to here, okay? Even though you're swinging the crap out of this thing, that's where the coil is going to be parallel, is in that square. So that's going to be the only place you're actually detecting. Now, the correct way, at least the way that I do it, is I go hip to hip. So I'll go all the way to my left hip, all the way to my right hip. And I'm trying to keep this coil as flat as possible and as close to the ground as possible. And sometimes here on the beach, you'll scrub some sand and it won't be that big of a deal. But depending on how much sensitivity you've got on your detector, you may get some interference if you bump the ground, and that can give you a false signal. Let me see if I can show you. So I'm up to 25, which is the highest I can go on the Equinox 600, okay? Now you can hear the noise I'm getting, but if I move the detector too fast, let me get rid of some of that, see if I can get rid of it. If I move the detector too fast or change detection modes too quickly or anything, you can get a false signal. Now I can't get it to replicate right now, obviously, because I'm trying to show you what I'm talking about, and we know how that works. But I'm gonna put my foot out and I'm gonna kind of hit the shaft against my foot. Now I know you heard that. So if you bump this coil too much, you can get a false signal. And a lot of times, if you're in some really rich mineralized soil, you're already dealing with a bunch of interference. So every time you bump that coil, you can end up getting that interference level, okay? And you don't want to get that, okay? So if you do get a signal and you think it might be from bumping up against something, lift the coil up, make sure that it's nice and level, and then go back and try it again, okay? But that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. I see a bunch of people out here, they're walking the beach, they're walking super fast, and they're swinging it like a smiley face, okay? Take your time. I'm gonna drag my coil through the sand and I'm gonna kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. So what you wanna do is when you're detecting, you want your detection place to overlap. So you see this little spot I've made right here. Now your next sweep, you wanna be still in that original area, just a little bit past it. And if you're walking too fast, what you can end up doing is you can end up sweeping an area like this, and then because you're walking so fast, the next area you sweep is right here, but you've missed this big area in the middle. And that might be an area that has a target that you want, okay? So take your time, okay? Take your time detecting. The book for the Equinox says that your sweep should be 2 to 3 seconds from side to side. Okay, so from hip to hip, 1, 2, 3. You don't want to swing too fast because you can end up missing them, and you really don't want to swing too slow. You can swing too slow. You want to keep a good pace, okay, to get your best detections. Now I've got some trash in my pocket that I'll show you examples of here in just a moment from a detect that I did earlier today, okay? But as far as the style of detector you have and the environment that you're working in is going to have a lot to do with how you detect. Okay, out here on the sand, I can move pretty fast, back and forth, left and right. If I'm in the water, you're going to run into that issue where the water is touching the coil all the time. So if you're moving too fast through the water, you're going to hit a bunch of bad signals. And there's also some settings that you need to change up if you're in the water, but we'll cover that in another video. So you want to find yourself a nice, easy, smooth cadence. Okay, you want to go side to side, back and forth, making sure that you're not walking too fast so that you don't walk over a target and miss it by accident. Okay, so that's step number one. You get your detector set up for wherever you're at. Read your manuals for these things, because your manuals are going to have a lot of that startup information, which we'll go through too, but you know, it's always best to read the manual for your detector. It's going to give you a great starting point. Okay, and every detector is a little bit different. So now that we've got our detector set up, we've talked about keeping our coil parallel, okay, to the ground. We've talked about turning our gain or our sensitivity down to where we can get rid of a lot of that electrical interference and radio frequency interference from the buildings around us and maybe power lines or wherever we're at. We've got it set up in our mode. Now we're ready to look for a target. Okay, and on the Minelab Equinox 600, the one that I've got, you'll get target IDs right here where these two little blips are, and I'll show you by hitting my stainless steel basket. So you see we got a tone and we got a target ID. That number right there, that 25, is our target ID. And every detector is going to be different, so like I said, make sure you read your manual and pay attention, because different target IDs can give you an indication of what kind of metal it is that's under your coil. Okay, and we'll do a couple examples of that here in a second. Okay, so we'll start off with, let's see what I got in my pocket here from earlier. I think I have some coins in here, I do. So what I have here is a modern quarter. It's nothing special. It is a little brown and rusted, and it was under the wet sand here at the beach earlier today. So this is what we're gonna use, okay? So this, I just threw it out directly in front of me, okay? And we're just gonna do like a little simulation. I'm gonna show you, okay? So I'm walking. I'm making sure that I'm not walking so fast that I'm missing my area. I'm overlapping my detection, and we get a so you can hear it. So we're getting a 28 target ID. Okay, let me grab my scoop right here. And you can see that even though I'm going at a pretty good pace, 2 to 3 seconds, I'm still getting that signal. Now let's say that I'm over here and I'm swinging it this way. I'm gonna get a noise, but that's because we're really close to the surface. Okay, but you can hear that the tone becomes much brighter and much louder when I hold the coil parallel to the ground. Okay, now if this was something that I didn't know where it was at and I heard that signal, the first thing I would do is I'd come down to my pinpoint feature, and most metal detectors have a pinpoint feature. Read your material and find out how to use it properly. I'll show you how to use the Equinox 600 pinpointer. Now we're going to press this button that's going to turn on our pinpointer. Okay, this doesn't discriminate between metals. It picks up everything, and the way the book has told you to do it, and me, is that you're supposed to make a few swipes over the signal once you've kind of got it in your eye. And what that does is it narrows the target position down smaller and smaller every time you pass over it. So you can hear how it's become just a really quick, short blip. Now we're going to go slowly over it. And if you look at the detector screen right here, you'll see that there's 2 marks on both sides that become bigger the closer I get. And you can see them, they meet in the middle. So whenever they meet right dead in the center, that means the middle of the coil is directly over your target. That does not mean the middle of the coil where the shaft connects to the coil. That means where the coil comes together in the center. So it could be the tip, it could be the back, it could be the middle. What I like to do is when I find a signal and I've used my pinpoint feature, I get over it and I like to back up until it goes away, until I can't hear it anymore. Okay? And what I'll do then is I'll get closer to it and slower until they meet together. Okay, and once they've met together, I know that my target is somewhere close to the center of my coil, probably closer to the tip, maybe right here where the indicators are. You know, the coil marking and the brand of the detector, you know, right there, but every detector is going to be different. So now I know that somewhere in this general area, right where my coil meets together, is where my target is. So what I'm going to do is, if I'm on the beach, I'll walk it back and forth and then remove it. And if you look, there's a little indentation in the sand that's in the shape of my coil. Okay, so I'll take my scoop and back up a couple inches from the tip of my coil, scoop it down. I don't usually have my arm strapped in, I do today, but that's just for demonstration purposes. So I'll lift it up, grab my scoop, and I'll shake it back and forth to filter out the sand. And as you can see, we have our target. And there it is. Now everything that you get is going to be a different target ID because of the different metals that things are made out of. Okay, so some pennies, some copper pennies, for me in my detector and the way I have it set up, rings up a 22 target ID. My quarters obviously ring up a higher target ID, as you just saw, the higher 20s. Okay, but just because you get a target ID with one type of material doesn't mean that that's what it is. So you can do a lot of research on YouTube, which I may put out a video as well, but you can also see that some of your smaller gold rings and smaller jewelry can ring up the same target ID number as an aluminum can tab from a soda can or a beer can. That little tab that you pull, I think I actually might have one here. I might have one. Let's see. I do, right here. So this right here usually rings up about a 13 to 15. Okay, we'll walk over it just to see. Okay, so you can see that 13 coming up right there on the screen. Okay, and the coolest part about it is you're gonna dig a bunch of these, because a lot of gold rings will ring up the exact same number, that 13, 14. A lot of gold rings that I've found in the past will ring up that same number. And you can look through some of my videos that I have posted on the other playlist for metal detecting, and you'll see that they do. And that's the most infuriating part of this whole operation, is when you're out here on the beach and you're looking for jewelry, let's say you just want to look for jewelry, you're going to run all metal mode, which is iron and ferrous targets also, okay, so that you pick up everything, because some gold plated jewelry also has things under it like pewter and some steels and some iron and ferrous ingredients in it. So if you turn off that all metal mode, you could be walking over some gold plated jewelry. Now of course it's not going to be the Hope diamond, but it's still jewelry that you can be getting. So when you're out here on the beach, dig every signal. Okay, it's better to be safe than sorry, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a can tab. But that one time that you get a gold ring, it's really going to change your opinion. Which brings me to another point that I want to really touch on, that I find quite important. Don't get a metal detector and come out and metal detect the beaches and the parks with the intentions of finding jewelry. You'll get your heart broken every single time. You'll spend $500 or $600, maybe you won't, but you'll spend a certain amount of money, and you'll go out and you'll spend about 4 or 5 trips your first time, and you won't find any jewelry, and you're gonna get bummed out. I did it. I've done it in the past. And then what happens is you put your metal detector away and it just sits there and it rots, and you end up selling it on Craigslist or Facebook for half of what you paid for, because it's not what you expected it to be. Metal detecting is a hobby, and it's really great exercise if you can't get out and do a lot of intense exercising. A couple hours of walking on the beach, you get your vitamin D from the sun, you get your exercise of swinging this thing and walking, It's really good, but do it as a hobby. Do it because you enjoy finding things and you want to get out and explore. Don't do it with the intentions of finding jewelry, because you'll get your heart broken every time. Like I said, you can go out. There's been days where I go out 3 or 4 days in a row for a couple hours at a time and I don't find anything but trash. And then there's days when I go out and the first thing I find is a gold ring, a golden diamond ring worth $4,000 or $5,000. And in those instances, I try to get it back to the people that have lost it, and if I can't, then I keep it myself. So, as far as getting set up for your first time out metal detecting, read your brochure, read your information, keep your coil parallel, learn how to use the pinpoint function, and also get yourself a nice scoop or shovel, something that's comfortable for you to use, because in reality, you're going to be swinging this detector around a lot, but you're also going to be digging a lot. Okay, take your time, walk at a pace where you can cover the ground and overlap the ground so you're not missing any targets. Make sure that you've got your detector set up in all metal. Don't put any fancy settings on to cancel out bottle caps, because your vendor said that this bottle, this thing will cancel out bottle caps and soda cans and all that stuff. Dig it all. Dig it all until you become comfortable with your detector and how it works. And I'll be honest, I'm still not 100% comfortable. There's some settings in here that I don't understand. But, take your time and enjoy yourself. It's pretty much the biggest thing I can say. Read your brochure, enjoy yourself. Don't make smiley faces with your coil. And I think that pretty much covers all you need to really get started. So in the next video, we'll go through some of the different modes that the Equinox 600 here has to offer. There's a lot of people out there that have Equinox 600s and 800s. They're really good entry-level machines. And I've had a lot of questions on how to use the different modes and what they're for. So I've done the research, and I think our next video will be on the different modes. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like and share and subscribe. I can't stress that enough. Please share the videos. The more viewers we get, the more I'll come out here and do this stuff, and the more time I'll have to do this stuff. So we'll see you on the next video, and thanks for watching.